whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. For the ramparts we watched were so gladly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
You're in.
Please welcome Defiance President Publishing's Director of Author Acquisitions, Mr. Mark Wood.
Switch. Can't forget. Switch. So the Democratic, Communist, Socialist, and Globalist, Dan Crenshaw, welcome along into Southern Star Brewery. We were invited. Something like that. Hey, great to see you guys tonight. Great day. Great day to be in the great state of Texas. Celebrating during this rally against censorship. God knows it's needed. Thank y'all for making a stand and not being afraid to stand up for your God-given rights. And I don't know if y'all know or not, but we've got some great authors back over here on the side. You're going to hear some this evening. For those of y'all for those that will not be speaking on stage, I want to have them come up and stand in front of the stage here, and I want to give them some special recognition. If you haven't visited their papers, we'll be able to do that later this evening. These are very talented authors, dedicated. They picked Defiance because we're of like mind. These guys love freedom. They understand the importance of the First, Second, and all the other amendments. And they love this country. And that's why they chose us. And we're a big family. And so right down here, we have Troy Wilson, right? Fake News, that's his book. Where's Joe? Right here. Joe Patton Administration, she's got Traveling Off the X. Traveling Off the X. Got Dr. Ron Bryant. His book is Fraud President. This one right here. And then Travis Davis, Flames of Deception. These guys are big hands. They've traveled, they've come here to interview with you guys, and hopefully you get to go by and pick up a copy of their book while you're here. Now, I have a real honor this evening for those of y'all that came to the first rally against censorship. You got to hear from a gentleman, and I don't know how I pulled it off, but I got to be in a small room with a handful of people the next day. And this gentleman was part of that discussion, and just getting to listen and hear his knowledge of the Constitution, in particularly IRS law and things like this. I was just fascinated with this guy. And we have him here tonight. He's going to give to share with you guys. He's going to MC the evening, and we're very fortunate to have him. I'm going to read this because it's too much to memorize, and I don't want to miss anything. And how many of y'all remember Robert Bernhoff from a couple of years ago when we had our first rally against censorship? He's the IRS attorney. He is the founding partner of the Bernhoff law firm, SC, boutique civil and criminal litigation firm in Austin, Texas. He has litigated cases in state and federal courts in the U.S. and abroad, focusing on civil and criminal tax controversies, complex business disputes, and investment fraud recovery. Mr. Bernhoff was a touring musician and a business professional before becoming a lawyer. He graduated from the University of Wisconsin and Wisconsin Law School, where he became one of the nation's most successful tax defense attorneys. Mr. Bernhoff successfully defended several high-profile cases, including that of Wesley Snipes, who was acquitted of tax fraud and conspiracy charges. Mr. Bernhoff is widely considered America's #1 tax attorney and a constitutional law expert. Mr. Bernhoff wrote forward with David Thomas Roberts' best-selling book, The Death of Liberty. So with that, would y'all give us a big warm welcome for Mr. Robert Bernhoff.
Wow, Guns N' Roses, Axl Rose. I used to be a singer in a rock and roll band. True story. But I could not do what he does. Before we get going, let's give a big time round of applause for Dave Roberts, Defiance Publishing, all the volunteers who made this extraordinary event possible. Thank you. Thank you, Dave, and all the staff at Defiance. Just incredible people to work with, on top of every detail, and make doing things like this look real easy, but of course they're not. And I wanted to thank all of you for coming out to support this incredible event. Showing up is half the battle. The rest of the other half of the battle we'll talk about a little bit during my presentation and some other people here. So thank you for coming out and supporting this conference on cancel culture and of course First Amendment speech, which is what it is all about. Thank you. I guess I'm going to use this cord. All right. I'm an astute observer of culture and politics. I pay attention to it for decades. I also study some of these things. And the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, its guarantee of free speech, is under assault like no other time in American history. And that's not a hyperbolic statement. We live in a particular time where the threat to fundamental right to free speech is at issue. It's actually at issue. It is at risk. And that is absolutely incredible. Factions in the government, corporate media, academia, social media, and electronic communications platform have combined forces, and they're waging an all-out assault on First Amendment free speech. I think we all know what the reason for that is. If you can stop people from speaking their mind on the issues and things that are important to them, it's much easier to control the public narrative and discourse, and it's much easier to control people. If your particular side is the only side that has the megaphone, it moves out all other voices, and that is one of the first steps to tyranny, and we're seeing it today. What's the big deal with the First Amendment? And I say that a little bit rhetorically. Of course it's a big deal, but what is it about the First Amendment guarantee to free speech that is so important, that's so fundamental to our American way of life? One of our greatest Supreme Court justices, now he was what I would call a classical, principled, old school liberal, but he was one of our greatest First Amendment jurists, Justice Douglas. And I can't add anything to 3 or 4 sentences that he spoke many years ago about the importance of the First Amendment. Free speech has occupied an exalted position because of the high service it has given our society. Its protection is essential to the very existence of a democracy. It has been the safeguard of every religious, political, philosophical, economic, and racial group among us. Free speech has been the one single outstanding tenet that has made our institutions the symbol of freedom and equality, and I would add throughout the world. In my view, there's never been a more apt, concise statement of the power of the First Amendment. It protects who we are, it protects our children and our children's children, and it protects the Republic from all assault. Because if we can engage in the public marketplace of ideas and express our thoughts, the best thoughts and the best ideas win. If we're precluded from doing that, you can bet that the worst thoughts, according to the second law of thermodynamics, will move into that vacuum and occupy that space. And that's what is increasingly happening today. So in order for an informed, vigilant citizenry to rise up and protect the First Amendment, which is what is required, you have to know what the free speech rules are. So many of us have heard you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater. And many people believe that's the actual Supreme Court constitutional rule. There are people who should know better, people who purport to be learned scholars of the law and the Constitution, historians, and you hear this today. You can turn on the television and watch a news program, and if they're talking about cancel culture, you can hear that. They're actually still talking about a rule from 1919 that was overturned in 1969 by the Supreme Court in Brandenburg. It hasn't been the rule in over 100 years. It's very significant. Justice Holmes, it's one of the most odious decisions ever issued by the Supreme Court, United States v. Schenck, 1919. Schenck was a socialist, and he was pamphleteering against the compulsory draft for World War I. That's all he did. He printed up some pamphlets. He was distributing them. He didn't like the compulsory draft. He was charged under the Espionage Act and sentenced to many years in prison. And Justice Holmes' opinion confirmed and affirmed his conviction and said the First Amendment didn't protect that speech. And so that was the clear and present danger rule. And I note that Holmes's famous statement that you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater was not part of the decision. It was never the rule. It was an offhanded comment that we lawyers call dictum. It was not part of the decision. So in 1969, the Supreme Court overturned a terrible First Amendment rule, because you might hear the same tones echoing today. Clear and present danger. I mean, somebody in this audience's idea of what speech would be a clear and present danger would preclude my speech. In other words, you can use that rule to censor anybody's speech, and that's dangerous. You have to have rules, clear rules that people can understand. So Brandenburg v. Ohio, Clarence Brandenburg, by all accounts, was kind of a knuckle dragger. He was a Ku Klux Klaner, and he had a bunch of his drunken buddies, several hundred of them, and they had a lot of weapons around. They were out in the woods, and I won't say what he said. You can read the opinion. It's a short opinion, and the words are in the opinion. But essentially, he said that he exhorted his followers to go out and kill Jews and black people to save the Republic. That went up to the United States Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, in a unanimous 9-0 decision, reversed its criminal syndicalism convictions and said that was protected speech. Even speech advocating violence is protected under the First Amendment under certain circumstances. I'm not taking a position for violence, but this is important to know what the means and bounds are. The new rule under Brandenburg, well, it's not a new rule, it's 50 plus years old. And some of the commentators, the learned folks on TV and cable news, should really pay attention to it. Unless the speech is intentionally directed to incite or produce imminent lawless action and is likely to, in fact, incite or produce such action, that is protected speech. It has a subjective component and an objective component. So the government would have to prove there was an intent or a mindset, a scienter, as we say in the law, to cause imminent lawless action. That's the rule. Everybody should know the rule. And when you hear somebody talk about fire in a crowded movie theater, you should respectfully courteously correct them. So now it brings us to the Twitter file dumps. Matt Taibbi, investigative reporter, some of the most extraordinary material I've ever seen in my life. And I've investigated government misconduct cases, subornation of perjury, falsifying evidence, witnesses disappearing and having accidents, parallel construction, where the government uses unconstitutional means to start an investigation and then lies to the prosecutors, lie to the judges, to the juries, to the defense counsel, and conceal that information. That's the doctrine of parallel construction. But even I was shocked by the evidence that the federal government, particularly the FBI, was directly colluding with Twitter to censor speech. This is an extraordinarily dangerous moment in America. And I'm not going to take a position on Elon Musk. I don't know that much about him. But he has done the country a service by releasing the files. I know that for sure. Musk. So there's another Supreme Court rule that's been around for 100+ years after the Reconstruction Acts and the Civil Rights Acts in the late 1800s. The federal government cannot accomplish indirectly through a private party that which it is constitutionally prohibited from accomplishing or doing directly. That rule's been around for 100+ years. You can't even cite all the cases. There are hundreds, if not thousands of cases. And with the FBI and other federal government agencies, imagine a federal law enforcement agency with the power of the FBI, the investigative tools, leaning on and directing Twitter to censor speech. That, ladies and gentlemen, is unconstitutional. So that case, those cases have been around forever. There is some litigation. We have an attorney here who's doing some litigation that's somewhat related to this. Mr. Davis is going to come up and talk about that a little bit. So that's how we come to current and why this is so important. When you have big business, big media, big government, big academia combining in a confluence of assault, you have to rise up and take action. And so I would encourage all of you, I would exhort you, in fact, to protect your freedom to speak, express, and associate. Perhaps most importantly, protect other people's right to speak and express and associate. And even to the extent of supporting people's speech whom you hate, we should all be defending that speech as well for the right to say it. For the right to say it. And I will conclude with an old maxim, and I might have come up with this a bunch of years ago. I honestly can't remember. I do a lot of research and do a lot of reading. I actually tried to source it, and I could not find a public source quote, so maybe I actually came up with it. But I'll end with this. We tolerate the speech we hate because someday our speech might be hated. And the mission is ours. We have to take up the mantle, and let's defend the free speech rights of all Americans. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm performing a dual role up here. That was my little presentation. I'm also emceeing this event and introducing some, but not all, of our speakers. Our next speaker is Cassandra Spencer. Cassandra Spencer has had an exciting career that took her through the journey of a lifetime while she was still in her 30s. Originally from Hawaii, she graduated from the University of Alabama at Birmingham on an ROTC scholarship while being a single mom during that period. Her career as a public affairs officer for military intelligence in Asia and the Pacific Rim gave her an inside view to major world events such as the Edward Snowden leaks. Following a car accident that ended her military career prematurely, she found herself in Austin, Texas, the center of the universe, eventually ending up at Facebook, thinking that life would be settling down. Upon uncovering disturbing evidence of censorship, however, in 2017, she began to document what she saw and eventually turned the information over to Project Veritas, becoming the genesis of their highly successful whistleblower program. That was Cassandra's doing. After Facebook security shut her in a room attempting to violate her civil rights, She lost her job and went on to work for Project Veritas, where she exposed corrupt politicians from Beto O'Rourke to Bernie Sanders, plans by Google to manipulate our elections using artificial intelligence, and separately, other evidence produced by her as a journalist has resulted in numerous investigations into election integrity at all levels of government and at least 2 felony convictions. She is the best-selling author of Impact, How I Went Behind Enemy Lines in Our Struggle Against the Far Left, and is now the publishing manager of Defiance Press, overseeing the production of dozens of books and helping to amplify other conservative voices. Ladies and gentlemen, a big Texas round of applause for Cassandra Spencer.
First of all, I want to thank you all for the incredible welcome and introduction. For those who aren't familiar with my story, which most of you shouldn't be because that was largely intentional, considering that I spent several of the past years undercover. I was an 18-year-old college student, freshman at NYU, one of the most liberal schools in the country, back in 2004. So this is during the height of the Iraq War. As students argued back and forth about whether we should be in Iraq or not, as a teenager, I thought to myself, I was sitting there and observing, back when being anti-war was a left-wing position, how that's changed. And I remember thinking, these are all privileged kids. NYU is not a cheap school. None of the people arguing about these topics, whether it's the professors, whether it was the other students, none of them would ever set foot in a war zone. So I decided that I did not want to just be another person sitting there arguing about other people's fates and not being willing to step in myself. So I left NYU, decided to join the Army. I didn't come from that background. No one in my family had served since my grandfather in the Korean War. But, so I joined the Army. I commissioned in 2010. And I go through my career. I was at Fort Meade during Chelsea Manning's court-martial. And I was at Schofield Barracks during the Edward Snowden leaks. He actually worked at the Penina Tunnel, where some of our soldiers were stationed. So I kind of had this front row seat to a lot of these historic events, not thinking that it was really me who was going to be making a difference in any way. Fast forward, I get in a car accident, 2017. I decide I'm going to start my life over. So I moved to Austin, Texas. I hear it's a great place for young professionals. Get hired at Facebook. Think, yeah, this is going to be awesome. The Facebook cafeteria food's way better than any MRE that I had ever eaten. And so I'm doing my job. I'm an intellectual property analyst. And all of a sudden, one day, I kind of see a weird note on the back end of an account as I'm working a case. I kind of put it to the back of my mind and think, that's a little weird. Okay, move on. But then I kept seeing it. And I noticed a pattern. Facebook was issuing what they referred to as a deboost on prominent conservative accounts. Some of these accounts are people you might have even heard of, like Steven Crowder's account, the Daily Caller's account. And all of these actions were being taken without the user's knowledge. Whenever I would action a copyright ticket, that user would be issued a strike. They would know what was going on with their account. But some of these folks were paying good money to advertise on the Facebook platform, and yet Facebook was reducing their reach. And so once again, I found myself in a position of people started, this is 2017, so people were just starting to talk about tech censorship. And so I'm in a position where, what am I going to do about it? I see this going on. So one night I get on Twitter and I see a tweet from James O'Keefe. How many of you are familiar with James O'Keefe and Project Veritas? So I see a tweet and he says, hey, if you're on the inside of any of these companies, reach out to us. And so I do one night, literally 11 o'clock at night, thinking, I'm never going to hear from these people. They don't care. They reach out to me. And so I start sending them documents and proof of all the things I'm saying. Fast forward to when they released their first big tech story into Twitter censorship, as we just heard about. And they were talking about shadow banning at the time. 2 days after that story releases, I go into work, my manager tells me, hey, we need to talk to you. So I go in and I am shut in a Facebook conference room, along with not only the managers from the contracting company I was with, but Facebook security. They tell me that I am being terminated, and so I ask why. They won't tell me. They say, Facebook security wants to see your phone. Ironically, none of the information they wanted was on my cell phone. This is my personal cell phone, not unlike the one I have now. But Facebook security, for nearly 2 hours, tried to get me to hand over my personal device. I asked them, I said, hey, if I let you see my cell phone, am I going to keep my job? No. Why in the world would I give you my phone? So we have this roundabout conversation for 2 hours, and finally I'm like, listen guys, we're not getting anywhere. Can I leave? And I will never forget for my whole life what they told me. Well, legally we can't detain you. Yeah, no kidding. So as I walk out, I'm not even allowed to go clear my desk. And of course, the first call, like any kid I make, is to my parents. And they ask me, Cassandra, was it worth it? You know, just got out of the Army, you're starting your career, and now you just imploded it. Without a beat of hesitation, I told them yes. It was absolutely worth it. So, I'm sorry. So from there, I went on to become an undercover journalist. James O'Keefe gave me a job. And I began to do things that I never thought that I would be doing. From being told to potentially dig through dumpsters with Beto O'Rourke staffers as we spent campaign funds funding migrants coming across the border. One of my favorite parts of that investigation is how many times they discussed how much trouble they would be in if the FEC ever found out what they were doing. And one particular staffer, I will never forget, turned directly, not knowing that I had a hidden camera on, and said, you know, I hope the wrong person doesn't find out about this. Little did they know. So from there, I uncovered stories with big tech, including a Google executive talking about preventing the next Trump situation, which was cited by Ted Cruz on the floor of the Senate. I also was undercover in Bernie Sanders' campaign, where there were Antifa staffers who were talking about things so extreme as putting Republicans into camps and even killing the Clintons. So other things, I was called a very talented genius by President Trump indirectly to James. And a lot of people talk about voter fraud and election integrity. I have literally been chased off the lawn of a gentleman who I caught double voting in New Hampshire. And some of you may be familiar as well with the ballot harvesting investigation here in Texas. So it's one thing to talk about all these issues and what good journalism can expose. But one of the biggest things that happens is after these big Project Veritas stories, which, by the way, who here has seen their latest Pfizer story where they are talking about manipulating the virus so that they can sell more vaccines? In fact, sidebar, James was actually just texting me literally 10 minutes before I stepped up on this stage. They just released a video where that same gentleman physically assaulted James and snapped his iPad. So take that as you will. But people always ask Project Veritas when I was there as a journalist, now that you guys have exposed this information, now what happens? And that's what I'm here to talk about. Now what? Journalists can expose all the information possible, but it is up to everyday people to take action on that information. Whether that be, if you find yourself in a position to do the right thing, if you're in a government agency, in a healthcare company, anywhere where there's waste, fraud, and corruption, speak up. Let somebody know. Push on your elected officials so that they make actual, meaningful changes. Support the people who are doing whistleblower work. Because, like me, I ended up on food stamps at first. Because, I lost my job. And so that is what I am here to do. I had them play Just a Girl as I came up here, because that really is what I am. There is nothing particularly extraordinary about me, about my upbringing, 5'1", nothing crazy. I'm not a supermodel. I know people like to think that the only way Project Veritas gets content is from pretty girls on Tinder. That's not true. But I'm here to say that each and every person here has the ability to affect change. That's one of the reasons why I work at Defiance Press, because we are here not only exposing new information, but we are here to change the culture. And thank you all for being here this evening.
Cassandra Spencer, ladies and gentlemen. Amazing. Next, I have the distinct privilege of introducing Justin Sheffield. Without exaggeration, Justin Sheffield is a true American hero. He's a retired senior chief petty officer and warfare operator of the United States Naval Special Warfare Development Group, otherwise known as SEAL Team 6. He has completed hundreds of combat operations and is a recipient of the Silver Star, 6 Bronze Stars with Valor, a Purple Heart, and other sundry medals. He led the raid in Somalia that led to the successful rescue of a female American citizen and a Danish citizen. Justin now serves as president and CEO of All Eagles Oscar Foundation. Justin is also a best-selling author. His book, Mob 6, achieved critical acclaim and was on Amazon a #1 bestseller. Justin lives with his wife in this local community. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause, Justin Sheffield.
Thank you guys, thank you. You guys are awesome, thank you. Top Gun, this Navy, whatever. All right, who didn't see that movie and want to be a fighter pilot? Hey, first I just want to say thank you to the SEL Sheriff's Department here, law enforcement. I see the, I see the PB back there too. Appreciate you guys being here, man. Proud Boys. I see y'all back there. I haven't seen y'all in a while. I was going to talk about my book. There's a much more important book in front of me I'd like to talk about, but I want to open this up. Last time I talked in front of, I'm sure a lot of you, this might be your first time here, but we had one of these a couple of years ago, and I told the hostage rescue story. And what I'd like to do tonight is something a little different. I'd like to open it up to you guys, questions from the audience. I have 20 minutes. thought I had 20 minutes this time. All right, I got 20 minutes now, back on the clock. Nice. Anything you guys want? I've got a microphone up here. We can pass it around. Keep it clean, please. And I'd like to open it up to you guys. And while somebody's going to come up with the first question for me, ask me anything. So I wrote a book called Mob 6. It's about my, it's mostly about my life at SEAL Team 6 and all the combat operations. I did like 9 deployments to Afghanistan, been to Iraq, Somalia, all the really cool, fun places. My first deployment with SEAL Team 8 was to Colombia, and I would have given anything for that one again because I thought I was a loser because I was a Navy SEAL coming home with my buddies. Afghanistan, Iraq's going on, and I've never fired my own mate out of it. So I was embarrassed, to say the least. But there's a lot of action in that book. You can probably read it in about 2 trips to the bathroom is what I tell people, about 4 hours. It's a quick read. It's violent. There's some profanity, so I apologize up front for that. If you haven't read it yet, good to see you guys. Anybody got a question? Yes, sir.
Wasting a lot of military arms. I think it was out of the hands of the state. National defenses, military defenses. Our veterans of the nation, the civilian wars of our coastal observations of the enemy out there on alternatives in the waters. All now is the fact of the matter that we should purchase the whole nation. Is that something you might know about?
Not sure if I understand exactly what you're asking. Is there enemy in our waters around this country? Is that what you're asking? Do I know that's what's going on? I would say a lot of things to that question. Good question, by the way. Thank you. So you talked about depletion of our equipment. I think the pullout in Afghanistan is about the worst handled thing I've seen in my life. Why we did that for so long and went over there for so long and fought and died, and guys back here, all the veterans in this room, I'm sure this room's full of them. God bless all of you. It's a punch in the gut for us. The way that we pulled out of that, we gave all our equipment over to the enemy that we were ordered to fight, which I would fight them today. Why would we have left the bases like we did in Germany, Korea, everywhere else in the world? Some sense of stability. Those bases belong to China now. I don't know if that's common knowledge, but you think Islam went away, it absolutely did. It will turn into a hate again, and expect what's coming because it is coming. Our border situation obviously is a serious problem. It doesn't seem like very many people in our country are taking it very seriously. Well, politicians in our country are taking it very seriously. You better believe that there is jihadists as well as cartel, as well as everything else coming across freely right now. And they're in our cities, they're in our communities. There's law enforcement in California. I know for a fact it's been told to, in order to, leave them be and leave them alone. Don't get involved. That's what we're dealing with. So I would say, carry a sidearm, know how to use it. Teach your children the safety about guns and gun control. Not gun control, excuse me. You guys know what I mean. Safety. Gun control's in my mind. I hate that term. That's right. That's right. Yeah, go ahead. I'll tell you what, if you have more questions when I'm done, meet me over there in my booth, brother. I'll talk to you all day. I'll tell you all the war stories you want. Or if you want to know where the gold is, censorship on our military. That's right. That's right. That's why we're here, right? To speak against that, to stand against that censorship. I'd like to talk to you further if we can. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much for being here. Service. This is much. I've seen, unfortunately, is the weakness that it's almost like so my answer is not violence. The vote alone is not someone. So
I'm going to need more than 10 minutes here.
national voting day, especially in the state of Texas, because we hold our rights in this state before anyone and with God. So
You said it.
start a national election day, don't we can make criminals, why do we good like this to vote for the state? And when we secede from every state, this nonsense that's going on. It's only gas stove. All this nonsense is going on. Let's go to God. Let's go to God first. First and foremost. Because I can fight for this country more than anybody else, nor get yourself for a politician. We need for God. God,
Thank you. Amen, dude. What's your name, brother? What's your name? Hey, thank you for that, man. God bless you. I should get you up here. Lead the charge, brother. I don't think there was a question in there, but I am all over what you were saying, man. You'll be carded to get on an airplane. I do it all the time. You'll be carded for everything. ID card, ID show. When it comes to voting, there's no ID required for some reason for certain places and certain individuals, and it's ridiculous. I lean a little bit even farther to the right on voting. I think that if you pay taxes, you should be allowed to vote. If you don't pay taxes, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. That's my what I feel about it. You have a question, sir? Go ahead.
Yes, I will comment about the surrendering of background national space. While I'm saying it, I'm looking at the picture on the wall behind me. My question is, the attempted court martial of Master Chief Gallagher, I'm assuming you knew him.
I didn't know him personally. I know of the story.
But why did that happen?
Right. I apologize. I don't know a whole lot about the details of that. I do know of the story. I believe he killed somebody, maybe a prisoner, from what I understand. I apologize. I don't know more about that. I believe he was acquitted, found not guilty. So God bless him. From what I understand, he served his country. The guy's been to combat a lot. I've got nothing but respect for this kind of people. We got brought up on charges a lot ourselves, especially at SEAL Team 6. Coming off target, sometimes there would be a lot of carnage. In the daytime, that looks different than at night. All bad guys look like they're sleeping when they're dead, it turns out. So all of us have had our rights read to us. We've had to hire and pay for our own lawyers and keep them on retainer for that very reason. There's a lot of people that want to stop us, even while we're on active duty overseas. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you for that, brother. Yeah, I wish there was. Yeah. We would have been over a long time ago if that was the case. I hate to say it. Let's see, I got in, Bush was in office. Just coming into office there. And I haven't been too happy with the leader since then. Obviously, I love Trump. I thought he was great. I know a lot of people, whatever, thought he was a good president, a good leader in this country. He was different. Did he say too much sometimes? Yes, maybe so. However, the guy loved this country. He loved us. Okay, and that's who you want as a leader. My best leaders I can think of are guys that loved us. Right? It was different. It wasn't just leading the charge, getting a paycheck. I'm an officer. I'm going to move on to the next thing. I'm probably learned more. I was telling somebody this earlier. I learned more from the bad leadership that I had. But the good ones, it was always common ground. They absolutely loved us. They cared about our lives. And you guys know the deal. Calm breeds calm. And that kind of affection for each other breeds more of it. And we have compassion for human life. I mean, we call the assassins of SEAL Team 6. We killed a lot of people. But we have compassion for human life. We saved a lot of people. And I do it all again. I have no regrets of that. But great question. I wish there was more that we could do to stop that. Because you better believe that our government's infiltrated. I believe that. I believe utterly evil, a lot of it. That's coming from my heart. Thank you. Absolutely. I got 7 minutes.
Do you have security at a top level security, top clearance, security, whatever it's called? And do you have top secret documents at your house?
That's good. That's fun. See how much more fun this is? They're not my garage. I don't have a Corvette.
Hi, I've seen this all over Twitter. I'm a young person, and some of my followers and a lot of young, inexperienced people talking about what they would do, what the police would do if they were given an order that they disagreed more. Like if the army was given an order by Democrats, let's say, to start rounding up citizens that they disagree with. So I was wondering, have you ever been given an order like that where you disagree with it on a moral level, and what did you or what would you do?
It's a great question. Given an order that I've disagreed with morally, I'm trying to think back. I've gotten a lot of orders that I disobeyed, disagreed with, but I don't know if it was moral grounds or if it was grounds that the person sending us out was one of those that didn't care about our lives and they weren't listening to the guys with experience. One instance was in Afghanistan, an op called Red Lion, where we were sent out and against all of us. I was a sniper point man for this particular target, and we walked all night. We landed way out. We knew this was bad. Full moon, high wind. It was in outside our house, so Tora Bora. So we went up there. We got over the crest of the mountain. Long story short, everybody was awake. I got 5 minutes. I can finish this. We called back, said, "Hey, everybody's awake. This is really bad." The guy that we're after, we knew from intelligence he was no longer there. He had gone out across the border to Pakistan. So we were calling for extra. We needed to get out of there before somebody saw us. Maybe there was 14, 15 of us still there. A bunch of SEALs, a couple of Rangers, a couple of Air Force fellows that we take with us, BJ, CCT guys. And we'd always grab some Rangers if we could. And I think we had like 2 Afghans with us. And long story short, we went in through this maze up the side of a mountain and kicked off a gunfight. Me and my sniper partner engaged a guy with an AK. Pretty much kicked off the night. It was like kicking an anthill. The guys were all around us. I'd never seen anything like it. With men coming out with small children in their arms. They weren't coming out to protect the children. They would send kids out to shoot through them. This isn't something that we would do. We never did this. Throwing your wife into the doorway while we're making entry and shooting full automatic fire through her to hit us. This is something we would never think of. Every dude in here, I guarantee you, if somebody came in place, you better be getting out the kids and the women, right? That's how we roll. Needless to say, we got to the target area that we were ordered to go to, and it was an open. We were already engaged in about a 2-hour firefight, surrounded by the grace of God. We made it out, killing our way out. We exfilled sometime the next week. But that's one example of an order that later on in my career came up and I was a team leader, I was able to squash those kinds of things in my life, which was great because one person had a shot and I that's a great question. There's no rewards that go out there. I don't know about the end world. I don't know. That's a great question. I got 2 minutes and 33 seconds. That's something.
Yes, Gordon Austin actually had a hearing with American Affairs where he called us extremists and here present dangers. What are your thoughts on that?
We're the extremists?
Right-wing extremism.
Yeah.
DHS 2009 report.
I mean, if I'm an extremist in my faith in Jesus Christ, well, it's funny, I had a message prepared for all of you and looked around the room for a while, and I realized that probably most people in here believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. Am I right about that? Yes. That's why we're not getting that right now. We're not extremists. It's ridiculous. Get used to the call us, though. You know what I mean? Get used to it. We're always going to be called out. It's not going to stop, especially you Christians. Just wait until the news gets tighter and they censor this. Right? That's next. I promise you. Thank God we live in this state of Texas and we live in this country where I can stand up here and I can talk about Christ. I can talk about this word being the only word of God. Complete. Right? I don't have to worry about none of that censorship. There's some countries that can kill on the spot. So, God bless Texas. Guys, I'll be right over here at this booth. Please come talk to me. If y'all want to hear a war story, I apologize I didn't tell many tonight, but I'll have plenty over there. My book, like I said, it's a quick read. Check it out. Thank y'all for your time. Thank y'all for being here. God bless you guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senior Master Chief Justin Sheffield. Big round of applause here. Never let it be said that at Dave Roberts' event, the trains don't run on time. They are running. I next have the privilege of introducing a man named Paul Davis. Paul Davis is a Texas attorney. He's a managing attorney at Paul and Davis and Associates. He's an alumnus of the University of Texas School of Law. He worked as a civil litigator for large Texas-based international law firms. He was associate general counsel and director of human resources for Goosehead Insurance. He started his own law practice after being fired from Goosehead for exercising his First Amendment rights. He focuses his practice today on issues such as employee rights, social media censorship, and holds school boards accountable for the indoctrination of children. He won a temporary restraining order against Meta Platforms Facebook for censoring a former Texas gubernatorial candidate's account and has filed a class action lawsuit against Meta for the Texas Nationalist Movement, TEXIT, with the goal of filing similar lawsuits for all Texans. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Paul Davis.
All right, thank you so much. I might talk a little fast because I wrote a 15-minute speech and they told me I only had 10 minutes, so. My name is Paul Davis. On social media, if you follow me, you might know me as Fired Up Texas Lawyer. And in case y'all haven't heard, we have a law in Texas against social media censorship. Yeah. But for some reason, even though this law's been around since December of 2021, I am the only attorney in the state who's bringing lawsuits under this amazing statute. Why is that? Why is that? Why are no other lawyers standing up against this censorship when we have a law against it? It's unbelievable to me. But I do have, I've come up with a solution to this problem that there just don't seem to be enough lawyers out there with the conviction, I would say maybe the balls to stand up to big tech censorship. So I'm going to talk about something new I'm doing at the end of this speech. So just to keep you, hanging on your toes there. But is there anybody out there who has not been censored on social media? No. Oh, are you a Fed or maybe a journalist? I'm kidding. It's just, if you're not getting censored on social media, if you're not getting banned, you're not speaking truth, right? I mean, who has been permanently banned from a social media platform? All right, there we go. Those are the real heroes, right? That's the real badge of honor. What did you say? There are only two genders, or men can't get pregnant, You bigot. How dare you? How dare you? Greta Thunberg. Maybe you're more of a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist like me. What misinformation did you spread to destroy democracy today? Did you say the 2020 election was stolen, or Carrie Lake's election was stolen, or maybe you said that the Chinese virus, the CCP virus, was leaked from the Wuhan lab and was created with gain of function using U.S. taxpayer dollars under the direction of Anthony Fauci. Do you see why I get kicked off social media? But this is why I'm so passionate about freedom of speech on social media, and why I'm willing to risk my entire law practice and livelihood, despite being, I'm proud to say, I'm probably the most grievance attorney in the state of Texas in the last 2 years. I think I've had 80-something bar grievances filed against me for what I do. The reason I'm so passionate about this, well, okay, who here knows somebody who died as a result of getting the jab? Yeah, I think we all do, right? Who here has had a loved one or just seen somebody get murdered by a hospital with remdesivir and the ventilator and all the drugs they give you? Yes, I mean, I've seen it firsthand, and there's nothing more disturbing to me than a hospital telling you they're caring for your loved one while you know they're poisoning them to death. It's outrageous. And all to get federal money from the CARES Act. You know the average payout to a hospital in Texas where someone dies after getting treated with remdesivir and the vent is $180,000. And do you think any of this would be happening if people were able to get accurate information on social media? Do you think anybody would get vaccinated if they were able to see all these photos and videos of massive fibrous blood clots being pulled out of arteries and veins of people who died shortly after getting the jab? I don't think so. I mean, do y'all think we would have a demented fascist pedophile in the White House if it weren't for Facebook and Twitter censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story? Yeah, that's why I got kicked off TikTok, I'm sure. But, I mean, would we be on the brink of all-out nuclear war right now if it weren't for censorship on social media, where people cannot hear the truth about what is going on in our world? And that's why I'm so passionate about this. I think that social media censorship is one of the biggest, it might be the biggest threat to humanity today. And why is it that you aren't allowed to say these things? Why is it that you're not allowed to speak the truth? It's not because you're destroying democracy, I can tell you that. It's because there's this pesky 236-year-old document called the Constitution of the United States, where a group of people had the brilliant revelation that our rights come from God, not the government. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And as long as we still share that belief, we cannot be enslaved. And make no mistake, the people who control Joe Biden, whoever that might be, whether it be the Communist Chinese Party or whoever's paying it, giving him his paycheck, they want to enslave us. If you don't believe me, go read the World Economic Forum website. I mean, they admit it. These people meet in Davos and plan out how they're going to control our speech, control the flow of information. That's one of the biggest things they have to do. The UN has said that's a priority. And, they want to put chips under our skin to track us. I mean, it's just the central bank digital currencies, if you haven't heard of that. All these things, they want to enslave us, but they can't if we have the freedom to expose them. And I don't know if you noticed this year that a lot of people didn't attend the World Economic Forum, and that's because the word is getting out. And we need the word to continue to get out so that we don't lose our freedom, because we will lose our freedom if we're not free to speak our minds and exchange information in the public square of social media. And like it or not, that is where people go today to share their ideas and exchange information. And we will lose our God-given right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness if we're not free to speak our minds. Benjamin Franklin said when he said in the Dogwood Papers in 1722, quoting, "In those wretched countries where a man cannot control his own tongue, he can scarce call anything his own. Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech." And that is exactly what they're doing. So let me say this again. This is an existential battle. Like Ben Franklin said, we have nothing if we do not have free speech. That's why our founding fathers made it the First Amendment to the Constitution. And we can't be afraid of what we might lose by standing up and drawing a line in the sand right here on social media censorship. I know what it is to sacrifice for the cause of freedom. Like many of you, I was disturbed by what I saw in the 2020 election. I felt it was my duty to go to Washington, D.C. and make my voice heard. And just for standing outside, exercising my First Amendment right, just using my voice to protest, as is my right as an American citizen, my God-given right, I was tear gassed, I was hit with flashbangs, and I get back to my hotel room and I find out that some journalist had made a viral tweet about me that almost 3 million people saw, saying that I stormed the Capitol to stage a coup, which is a complete lie, and I was fired the next morning from my job. I was blackballed by the legal job market. My fiance walked out on me. I found out how woke my church was when they turned their backs on me. I lost my house. I pretty much lost everything. And, you know, I mean, you think I curled up in the fetal position and cried about that? You're darn right I did. It was awful. I'm only human. So, but you know, how many know God never leaves you in that place? So he met me in that dark place and told me he still had a purpose for me. And to brush my shoulders off and get up and start my own law firm. And that was the last thing that I wanted to do. I didn't think I could do anything like that. But I did. And the next week, Joe Biden announced something called a vaccine mandate in the workplace. And all of a sudden, I was the only conservative lawyer that I knew of in the whole country who was an employment law specialist. Do you think that was an accident? So I just want to say, whatever happened to you in your life, God's not done with you. He has a purpose. I never thought I would be doing what I'm doing now. I thought I was done. And that's exactly what Satan wants you to think. So, you know, I helped hundreds of people save their jobs. I'm very proud of that. We're still suing companies for wrongful terminations. But then the social media censorship thing got on my radar when Facebook put Chad Prather in Facebook jail a week before the election. And I thought it was wrong. So I read up on this law. I filed a lawsuit. We're in court with Facebook the next day. And we got a temporary restraining order. I mean, I don't think they knew what hit them. It was amazing. So when Daniel Miller, who you'll hear next, called me and told me that Facebook was censoring the TEXITnow.org link and anybody who shared it, I was excited. I couldn't wait to sue Facebook again. What I want to do, this is a new law, so it has to be shaped with court opinions, right? So there's some issues, like right now, you know, we filed the class action lawsuit for TEXIT. I also filed my own lawsuit against TikTok and Meta platforms because they kicked me off because I was sharing useful information on how to fight vaccine mandates in the workplace. You know, how dare I do that? Can't tell people how to be free. So we're trying to shape this law. They are trying. We filed it in state court. They removed it to federal court. They don't want it in state court. They don't want Texas to have a say in how its own law is interpreted. They want some unelected federal judge to do that. And they also want to move all these lawsuits to the Northern District of California, San Francisco. Yeah, I wonder why. Because they have a forum selection clause in their contract that says you can only sue them in San Francisco. That's the only place you can sue them. Well, I think Texas has a thing or two to say about that. The law is written in such a way that these clauses cannot be enforced, but it is still a battle. So we're fighting that battle. We're going to shape this law. We're going to get favorable rulings, and once we do that, we're going to roll this out with class actions for everybody. I don't want a single Texan to ever be censored on social media again. So the biggest issue in these lawsuits is that social media platforms think they have a First Amendment right to censor. Isn't that ridiculous? So I want to encourage you by reading you something from, I'm going to end with this. The Fifth Circuit took up this case. What happened was, when this law first came out, the platforms all sued Ken Paxton, our great attorney general, and the woke judge in Austin who heard the case put a restraining order, basically an injunction, on the law so that Ken Paxton couldn't enforce it. And that went up to the Fifth Circuit, and the Fifth Circuit said, hell no, to that judge. And this is what the judge said to this, or the Fifth Circuit said to the idea that platforms have a First Amendment right to censor. It says, in urging, let's see, oh, here we go. A Texas statute named House Bill 20 generally prohibits large social media platforms from censoring speech based on the viewpoint of its speaker. The platforms urge us to hold that the statute is facially unconstitutional and hence cannot be applied to anyone at any time under any circumstances. In urging such sweeping relief, the platforms offer a rather odd inversion of the First Amendment. That amendment, of course, protects every person's right to the freedom of speech, but the platforms argue that buried somewhere in the person's enumerated right to free speech lies a corporation's unenumerated right to muzzle speech. Today, we reject the idea that corporations have a freewheeling First Amendment right to censor what people say. That's what the Fifth Circuit said. So this is going up to the Supreme Court. We're going to get a ruling, I think, by June, and then, pray for that. Because, if the Supreme Court doesn't go in our favor on that, we got much bigger issues in this country. But if they go our way, it's on like Donkey Kong. We're going to sue, you know what, out of them. So if you want to be a part of these class action lawsuits, what we're doing is you can go to, I was hoping to have a link to our new online community. We're calling it Class Action Patriots. But we weren't able to get the link up today. So you can go to my website. It's just fireduptxlawyer.com. That's fireduptxlawyer.com. It'll prompt you for your email address. Just put your email address in. Once we have all that ready, we'll email you, and you'll be free to join one of our class actions. You can also, a huge problem, as I said, there's not enough conservative lawyers to go around. So we're taking everything that we're doing, and we're creating templates. If you're getting oppressed, by like a school board, for instance, we're going to show you how to bring a lawsuit to protect your First Amendment rights, and we're going to have cookie-cutter pleadings. So that'll be a great tool for you. So that's all I have to say tonight. That's all the time I have. But if you want to get more information, just go to my website. Follow me on social media. That's where I put out just all the information on what I'm doing. It's just at fireduptxlawyer on pretty much any platform. So thank you all so much.
Paul Davis, ladies and gentlemen. Fighting the good fight and winning. Winning is important. Sometimes people in the Patriot community, I think they almost kind of get used to losing. I despise losing almost more than anything else in the world. And we all have to get used to despising losing and getting used to winning a little more. All right. We've got a great guest coming up here, and my privilege to introduce him. Daniel Miller is president of the Texas Nationalist Movement. He's been an outspoken advocate for Texas independence since 1986. As the head of one of the largest and most influential political organizations in Texas, Daniel Miller has extensively researched and engaged the issue of self-determination, not just for Texas, but as part of a growing global trend. Daniel's been featured on every major news network and been interviewed by every major newspaper in Texas and around the world. He's been a featured guest on Fox News, CNN, CNBC, BBC News, RT TV. You might get in trouble for that these days. And many other news outlets. Daniel has been a vocal proponent of a fundamental re-examination of the relationship between all states in the federal union. A groundbreaking book he authored in 2018 was TEXIT, Why and How Texas Will Leave the Union. Channeling his years of experience, TEXIT explains the forces driving Texas independence, lays out a clear path to get there, and answers all the fundamental questions and objections to Texas reasserting its status as an independent nation. Miller, a sixth-generation Texan, was born and raised in Northeast Texas, currently resides in Southeast Texas with his wife, Cara. Both avid Texas music fans, Daniel and Cara operate Radio Free Texas, one of the first online outlets for independent music created in Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, special warm welcome for Daniel Miller.
How does he get ZZ Top? Huh? He gets ZZ Top.
Is this going to be a ha moment? Is that what's happening here? All right. All right. I have to say, Dave Roberts, thank you for the intro. All right. I guess that's how we're kicking this thing off tonight, huh? Howdy. Oh, no. This is called a rally against censorship, not a sedentary sit back and watch event against censorship. So let's try that again. Howdy. Now we're talking. Well, let me first and foremost thank Dave and the team at Defiance for inviting us to be here tonight. What a phenomenal event, right? Dave calls me up in December, says, man, I'm thinking about doing an event. It's going to be a small, low-key affair. And that's not how it turned out, is it? Because, you know, one of the most ironic things is when people try to cancel a rally against censorship. I mean, how stupid do you have to be? You just proved the necessity for a rally against censorship, am I right? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, anyway, again, a big hand for Paul Davis, our attorney as well, who's fighting that Facebook lawsuit. Thank you, Paul. And let me, before I get into any of this about censorship or cancel culture, let me just assure everyone here that we intend to take Facebook to the paint and prove to them once and for all that if you want to put a muzzle on Texans, to paraphrase Davy Crockett, you can go to hell. You know, the interesting thing about it is that when we sued Facebook, we had a sense that they were going to make a big deal about the issue that has been fundamental and central to my entire adult life. And they didn't disappoint. You see, while we went after them for the issue of preventing people like you from posting links to our website, it wasn't too long before they showed their true intentions. Because almost in their very first filing, they referenced what the opposition and the establishment considers one of the greatest political heresies of our time. You want to know what that is? You want to know? Okay, that's cool. I'm just making sure y'all still with me. It's simply this. All political power is inherent in the people. And all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their benefit. And the people have, at all times, the inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think expedient.
Oh, the heresy. You know, when I had my line in the sand moment, August 24th, 1996, I knew it was going to be an uphill climb. I knew that people were afraid to hear those words. But here's the thing. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of the Texas Constitution in Article 1, Section 2. And did you notice that it said that those rights are inalienable? Think about why we are gathered here tonight. To rally in protection and support of our inalienable right to speak our minds freely without interference, particularly interference from the government. And let's be honest, as we have all sort of felt in our guts, but all that has come to light, you heard Bob talk about it earlier, the service that Elon Musk did by dropping the Twitter files. We know now that the federal government hired social media companies to muzzle people like us. They contracted out the suppression of an inalienable right and used our money. And I want you to think about how all of us should feel about being suppressed and censored. And now I want you to realize that that has been the issue of TEXIT since day one. The fact that we would speak the greatest political heresy of our time, a quote from the Texas Bill of Rights, that has been the uphill climb. And it's not just a muzzle, it's the fact that so many that promulgate those words, and I'm talking about people in the media, I'm talking about establishment politicians, will echo such untruths, half-truths, and falsehoods in an attempt to deprive all of us of our right to choose how we govern ourselves. You know, a little known fact, and Dave talked about this, or he might at some point, the TEXIT book. The book we released in 2018, because, look, if I'm being honest, I got tired of answering the same questions over and over, and it needed to be in a book, has been an Amazon bestseller 6 different times. Didn't start out to be an author, don't think of myself as one, but 6 different times. But how many of you here knew that? Not very many. But imagine this, a book about Texas and the possibility of withdrawing from the Union and becoming a self-governing independent state, a self-governing independent nation among nations, a bestseller 6 times on Amazon. Now, I don't know how much rocket fuel that accounts for in Bezos' rocket, probably not much, but it's significant. How many of you knew about the poll that was released this summer that said that if the vote on TEXIT were to happen tomorrow, that 66% of likely voters would vote yes? Those are things that they don't want you to hear because they consider it a great political heresy. But you know, here's the thing about it. Publishers like Defiance Press help folks like us to allow us to get the message out. But you know, who else helps us? And that's you. Because when the social media companies and the media and other people want to put a muzzle on this issue, it's you, the Texans who love liberty and self-government, that carry the message to Texas voters. And so we have run an amazing grassroots campaign through our organization to do one thing and one thing alone. Give you a choice. Not to strong arm you into supporting TEXIT, but to give you the option to even vote on it on a ballot. Now, I'm going to explain a another reason why this issue has been a victim of censorship. And it's because it brings up some uncomfortable truths, some discussions about, how we are governed that the establishment would rather not answer. And I'm going to give it to you this way. Those of you who have seen me before, you know where this is headed. But I'm going to ask everyone in this room a question and demonstrate for you why they find this message uncomfortable. And I'm going to ask it, and it's not a rhetorical question. I want you to answer it for me. Can you do that? Yeah. So tonight, I want you to imagine for a moment that Texas was already a self-governing independent nation among nations, just like 200 other governments and countries around the world. We had control over our own border and immigration policy. That would be nice, wouldn't it? We had control over our own military and our own national defense policy, our own economic and monetary policy, and our taxation policy, where we were not having 87,000 IRS agents sent to grind us under their boot heels. Imagine we had our own trade deals, our own travel agreements, our own embassies, our own passports. We were like 200 other self-governing independent nations around the world. And instead of talking about TEXIT, we were asking Texans whether or not we should join the Union. Let me ask you the question. I'm going to ask you the question, and I want an answer. Knowing everything you know about the federal government today, would you vote to give all that up and join the Union? Well, then let me be the first to welcome you all to the team. I have a short amount of time. They have adjusted this clock, and I'm fairly certain there's somebody on the other side of that curtain with a shepherd's hook. I don't know if you were cheering for me getting off the stage or that I had a little more time. I'm just going to be positive and assume that it was that I've got some more time. So I want to bring this around, and I want to bring it to a very fine point for everyone here tonight. And I think the drama surrounding this event is proof positive that we are doing the right thing. The right, your freedom of speech, is directly tied to your right of self-government. How in the world can you be adequately informed on the truth of issues in such a way as that you can exercise self-government if disparate voices are muzzled, if dissent is ground to powder? All of you out there have all thought something about politics or the economy or culture, and you have expressed that to others. But what does it mean when you have no outlet for that dissent? I just heard so many of you in this room admit that you feel the federal government is failing to represent you, to protect your liberty. In fact, we've heard tonight that it is indeed the federal government that is actively working to deprive you of your liberty. So what is it that we are to do? Because you see, we can rally here, we can rah-rah, you guys can go buy books, Paul can go back over here, he and I can high-five each other, and this is all over with. But at the end of the day, what is it that you are going to do? Because you see, folks like us, it's one person. Paul's one person. But notice Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution starts with the words, all political power is inherent in who? The people. Not the person, not the paperwork, not the politicians, the pollsters, the pundits, or propagandists. All political power is inherent in us, together as the people. So tonight could be a bang-up success. But if nothing comes out of it when we leave, then it is eat, meet, greet, and retreat. And my friends, as Texans who love liberty and who love independence, when it comes to our right to speak freely and our right of self-government, there can be no surrender and there can be no retreat. So the short time I have remaining, I will implore you to do this. Do not leave here without committing yourselves to take action. Much like Colonel Travis drew a line in the sand on the 12th day at the Alamo and laid it out for them, it has been laid out for you tonight. And that line, my friends, is drawn. Are you going to cross it? Are you going to honor the sacrifice of those who handed us a culture of freedom and liberty and independence? I believe the next 100 years of Texas history, yea, even world history, are being written in this place right now. How will future generations remember us? I know this. August 24th, 1996, I pledged to see Texas as a free, independent, self-governing nation, or until the grave digger pats me in the face with a shovel, whichever comes first. And I'm looking forward to when we walk out of here tonight, marching shoulder to shoulder with all of you toward a free, self-governing, and independent nation of Texas. I want to thank you all.
Daniel Miller, TEXIT, ladies and gentlemen. Drawing lines, let's do it. Thank you, Daniel.
A couple of featured speakers left this evening. And again, I have the privilege of introducing a truly great American, a man I met a number of years ago in professional circumstances. He was having issues with the Internal Revenue Service and Customs and Border Patrol waylaying him, so he couldn't get back into the country when he was going overseas to do vacations and things like that. We sorted that all out. Over the years, we've become fast friends and colleagues and co-travelers in political activism. And he means a lot to me. This is David Thomas Roberts. He's the founder of Defiance Press and Publishing. His vision for Defiance Press was born out of his own experiences of the woke liberal publishing industry, as expressed in his debut best-selling political thriller, Patriots of Treason. Roberts is a serial entrepreneur, and he saw the opportunity there to build a conservative publishing brand. David takes much pride in publishing outstanding authors that the woke liberal publishing industry won't touch, and providing those authors a platform to reach like-minded audiences. And when you think about some of the authors, not all of them who are presented here, and I urge you to go around to all of the booths of all the authors and organizations that are here. But when you think about some of the tremendous authors who have presented here tonight, and part of that is, a big part of that is because of David Thomas Roberts and Defiance Press and Publishing. It's very important to give a platform in printed media for these voices who would not get that opportunity otherwise. Roberts has built Defiance Press into the largest independent conservative publisher in the world. He is himself a multiple best-selling author. He's achieved critical acclaim for his 3-book Patriot book series and his iconic and complex Texas Ranger character, Pops Younger. In 2017, his debut entrepreneurship book, Unemployable, won the Texas Authors Association Business Book of the Year. His nonfiction book, which I had the privilege of writing the foreword to, The Death of Liberty, which took 2 years to research, may be the most prolific book written on the origins of the income tax and the corruption surrounding our current tax code. Roberts also co-wrote the best-selling life story of Sheriff Joe Arpaio, an American legend with Sheriff Joe. David Roberts' latest book, Hunt It Down, Kill It, and Drag It Home, Is, which has just recently been released. It's a hard-hitting take on what it takes to be a so-called self-made man or woman, or what he describes in the book as a modern-day savage. To be savage is a plus these days. A staunch constitutionalist, Roberts is active in politics, writing a political column in townhall.com. He's active in numerous conservative causes. For those of you who know them both, he has been lucky and blessed to be married to Rose for nearly 40 years, with 4 grown children and 6 grandchildren. Big round of applause for Rose. David's hobbies include ranching on his spread near Madisonville, Texas, where he raises and breeds nearly 100 head of registered Texas Longhorns, and of course pickleball, when his back allows him to play. It's my great honor and privilege to introduce to you my friend and colleague, Mr. David Thomas Roberts. Ladies and gentlemen.
Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Have some fun. Y'all know this goes with the logo of Defiance, right? Thank y'all. Bob, thank you very much for that gracious intro. Thank you for calling out Rose, because she deserves a medal for 40 years with me. Maybe as many as Justin has. But listen, welcome, okay? To all you deplorables, despicables, outlaws, insurrectionists, anti-vaxxers, Tea Party obstructionists. What else can I add to that list? I'm proud to be here with you. And listen, conspiracy theorists, we keep going here. Yeah, domestic terrorists, whatever they want to call us. Man, there's a lot to tell you about how we got here. And of course, the media hasn't delivered that story, right? But I'm going to tell you the truth tonight, because that's what I do. I listen. And I know there's some children here, and so I'm going to be careful, but I'm pissed off. Okay? You know, I took journalism in high school. Okay? That doesn't make me an expert. It doesn't make me an investigative reporter like Cassandra. And wow, isn't she good? What a blessing to have her on the team. What a blessing. But before I go into this, because I'm going to get wound up and I'm going to forget to thank some people. I'm going to do it now before I forget. So, first of all, thanks to our great authors. A lot of them traveled from out of state to come. Thank y'all. For those of y'all that have never written a book, it is kind of, well, for a guy. Well, I don't know, I guess guys can have babies now, but it's kind of like having a baby. You know, the book is your baby, and, you know, I never take for granted that these authors have entrusted, you know, what they poured themselves into a book and allowed us to publish it. So I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for allowing us to publish your works. I appreciate it. Special thanks to Mark Pruitt, who helped. And to everyone, a few people take some bows here. Mark, stand up. Gloria, Kelly, over there in the Defiance pen over there. Thank y'all so much for the Defiance staff. We got a great crew. We produce top-class books that rival anything from the woke liberal mob in New York. And I'm very proud of that. So thank y'all, and without y'all I couldn't do it. Thank you very much.
And thanks for all your help on this. So, when I took high school journalism, I think in my sophomore year, there's a few tenets that you learn in journalism. The who, what, when, where is how we told the story. But also talking about, getting both sides of the story, not just one side of the story. So, we're sitting backstage, and I'm talking to Kyle. And you guys are here, so you probably haven't seen this. Okay? And so, right now, I don't know whether y'all know it or not, but there was a live story, and I'll read you the headline. Okay? I bet y'all didn't know you're at this kind of event. Live updates. Rittenhouse rally against censorship kicks off to a small crowd, including Proud Boys.
Yeah!
Thank you, Houston Chronicle. So, of course, the Proud Boys, the J6 folks, all those folks, have been painted a certain way by the liberal media. And so they're just following that narrative, and you guys have all now have experienced being painted in the same light. And by the way, okay, and since we do have some fake news back there, we have some good ones, but we have some fake news back there. And we didn't censor them. We allowed them to come in here. I wasn't going to censor them and say they couldn't be here, even though the reporter on this, you, from the Houston Chronicle, wrote 2 stories about the Southern Star Brewery, okay, in both the local Conroe Courier and the Houston Chronicle. Bet you didn't think I was going to tell this story, did you, lady? So, wrote a story and gets quotes from the Southern Star folks, never calls Defiance, never calls me, never gets the other side of the story ever. Oh, by the way, she did get quotes from Montgomery County Judge Keogh. And by the way, I have a lot of differences with Judge Keogh. I like him personally. We have some political differences. But I will tell you this. He weathered a storm to make this facility available for us. So I think we need to call out and give a thank you to Judge Keogh. The Chronicle published 2 stories, never got my side of it. Finally did get my side of it yesterday, but then in the article that was written, I don't know, in the interview. Okay, so, so this is what we're up against. Okay, this is the exact type of thing that we're up against. And listen, I'm not willing to take it anymore. This is part of why I formed Defiance Press, for this particular reason. Oh, by the way, before I forget too, thank you to all the volunteers. We could not have done this and put this together without the volunteers. Woo! And the Chronicle may call this a small crowd. But if we were in a church service, this would be a big crowd, right? Now, so 2 years ago, we did the first rally for censorship, and we did it at the Marriott Waterway in the Woodlands. We had a great turnout, great fun. Sheriff Joe was the headliner of that, and we had a great time. This time, I thought, why don't we make this a little bit more intimate, as Dino mentioned, and support some local businesses. So the first business I said, well, how cool would it be to do this and have alcohol there too, And so I approached B52 Brewery. How many of you know who B52 Brewery is? And by the way, do we have that book over there? Do we have Cheetah over there? Can somebody run it up here for me? So we booked B52, okay, and then about a week and a half later, I got an email from the general manager of B52 Brewery and said, based on your book, we have hundreds of books, based on your book, we cannot in good conscience carry your event. And this is, by the way, before we had booked Kyle to be here. We didn't have, I was working on that, but it wasn't done yet. So I couldn't tell him that Kyle was going to be here. And I thought, what difference would it make? What difference would it make? So I get an email from the general manager of B52 Brewery saying, well, because of your book, we're not going to be able to handle your event. And I'm like, I immediately called him. I said, what book are you talking about? We have hundreds of books. What books got you upside down? He says, looks like a cheetah to me. Now, this is a children's book written by a father and son combo. The son did the illustrations of this children's book. And this is a book about a cheetah who straps on a pair of antelope horns and competes in antelope races. So, and it's a great book, and it's very whimsical, and it's satirical, and it's awesome. Okay, this is the book that B-52 banned us for. And I said, well, let me understand something for a minute. Okay, that book. Okay, I understand you have a problem with the book. So what? I said, now that particular author was invited, and he couldn't come here, so that's not going to be one of the books featured. So I was told that I needed to submit a list of the books that we were going to promote and a list of those authors, and to file our agenda with B-52. Guys, this is Montgomery County, which a lot of y'all think is the reddest county in the state. It's not. It's one of them, but it's not the reddest. But it's red enough that obviously B-52 doesn't know who their customers are. So I asked them for them to call the owner. I wanted the owner to call me. So the owner finally called me. It took him a day, calling me from snowboarding in Colorado. So I guess he came off the snowboard slope, went into his local Starbucks there in Aspen with his tight, skinny jeans on, his cafe latte, and his apple, and decided to call me. And so we had a fairly heated discussion. I said, listen, I will be the first one to tell you that a business owner has a right to serve anyone who they want to. Absolutely. I have no problem with that. But don't tell me that you're doing it for another reason. They didn't like this book. They didn't like the message of the book. They didn't like the message of our other authors. They didn't like the conservative mantra that we have, our mission. And so we were canceled by B-52. And so we moved on quietly. There was no reason for me to go public with that. I raised my eyebrows, and the guy was an asshole. Okay? But, okay, I drank any more of their beer. Okay, so I thought, well, I've been to Southern Star. I've been Republican events at Southern Star Brewery. I've been Dana Miller head of the event. So obviously a political event or something of this nature probably wouldn't be a problem with it. So we went there, we met him, Mark went with me. God, Mark is my witness. On 2 different meetings at Southern Star, and by this time we had booked Kyle. And I was very upfront and told them that Kyle's coming. And you know what? We were told, no problem. No problem, And then the next time I talked to him about a question or something we were booking with the event, I asked him again. No problem. I asked Mark. We got multiple assurances that having our event with Kyle was not going to be a problem. Then one day, I got a message from the general manager, who's a nice guy. I like him. His name's Keith, good guy. I think he just got caught in the crossfire. He said, David, our CEO was asking if you would pull down the logo, the Southern Star logo, from the promos for your event. So this was the first inkling that something was up. I said, yeah, okay. Why? I'll do it if that's what you want to do. He says, man, we're getting all kinds of grief. I said, oh, where? This is common. Where are you getting grief from? And he said, I don't know, just my CEO asked nicely if he would remove it. I said, no problem, done. So we did. Then 2 days later, I get the phone call that I figured I was going to get. He says, the CEO says they can't do the event. They're going to have to pull out. They're getting way too much grief. Now, again, I said, well, he doesn't have the balls to call me. Why doesn't he call me? He says, can you have him call me? So he eventually called me. And I had, and this is going to be he said, she said, but I have never been able to tell my story on this. So in my conversation with their CEO, I asked him, because he said, obviously, we got anything that we can't do. I said, that's your prerogative. I get it. Okay? But I'm trying to understand. I mean, you're in Conroe. I've been to Republican events at your facility. what is the issue? He says, I am getting a ton of grief. And I said, for what, where? He says, well, mainly from groups in Houston and from HEB. Now, the HEB thing, because I didn't put two and two together, was completely out of left field for me. I said, HEB, and then it dawned on me, well, HEB carries a couple of cans of beer. Okay? And I said, well, you know, I don't want the poor guy to lose his beer distributorship to HEB. So I get it, we'll move on. And again, I was willing to walk, keep my mouth shut, go find another venue. Then several hours later, one maybe you saw it, the post comes out, their social media posts are coming out with things like, no, we're not having a rally that doesn't align with our values. Which is interesting, because they had a gay pride night in June, so I thought they were really inclusive with everybody, but apparently not. And then, obviously, as the social media storm began, in which we gladly took part in, and made sure our story was told, this thing started picking up steam from all quarters. I've been on 30 interviews in the last 7 days. But this broke, our social media went crazy. You know, it's kind of, in the book business, there's no such thing as bad publicity when it comes to a book, really. But this really wasn't about a book, it was about us. It was about our authors, it was about y'all. And so I wasn't going to sit idly by and stand for us to get, you know, trashed for a lie to be told, and it is a lie. He did tell me that HEB would. Now, whether that's true or not, whether HEB really did threaten it, it may have just been his excuse. I don't know. He'd have to look into his heart and say, he can't keep two stories straight. But you know, Southern Star, the one thing that always bothered me about Southern Star is I don't really like canned beer. So to celebrate the event, we had these made for tonight. Now, see how this works? Now this book is flying off the shelves, as are some of our other books. I mean, thank you, Southern Star. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So, you know, that's the story. Now, today, and you know, when we arranged this with Montgomery County stepped up and provided this facility. Like, you know, I don't know what other counties would. They would have folded. I've been told they were getting literally hundreds and hundreds of requests to cancel us from all over the country. Their switchboard was busy. They were getting emails. They got attacked. So you know, again, when I said I really appreciate Mark Keogh, he stepped up to the plate and made this available to all of us. So I do thank you for that. In the meantime, on the Eventbrite where you register, we shot up. I think today, the last time I looked, we were close to 1,000 registered students. And we knew, we're no dummies, when you do an event free, and the left can figure out a way to try to manipulate that and try to load it, you know, there's obviously some percentage of that wasn't real. We have no way to tell. I mean, some of them were pretty obvious. You know, they sell Kill David, or they had something bad to say about Kyle in their email, or, you know. So we knew a percentage of that were going to be fake. I get it. But we deployed resources, okay, and the county made sure that we deployed resources to keep people safe. You know, and listen, folks, this is what this has gotten down to. We're doing a rally for censorship. I had to have at least 2 calls with the Sheriff's Department here and 2 calls with Homeland Security for this event. And the reason is because our damn friends back there, the way they portray us, the way we look to the outside world because of the way the media bias is, they think we're all a bunch of nuts, okay? And that's the way they portray us. So I actually had people call me today who apologized and said that they were worried about their own personal safety, and no matter what assurance that I could give them, they weren't coming. There's an area that the Sheriff's Department set up out here for protesters. in case protesters were going to show up. Okay? To be honest with you, I was hoping Antifa would show up. But of course, you guys tonight are displayed that way. But I wonder if that reporter and that newspaper and those media outlets called the BLM what they were when they were burning down the cities in their damn Marxist riots. The world's upside down. America's in trouble. I think Daniel's answer is probably what we're resigning to. And thank God for it. But I'll tell you this, okay? When we started the story of Defiance Press, they told you a little bit about, Bob told you a little bit, I think Daniel spoke to it, you know. When I was shunned by the liberal publishing industry, and listen, this is about as woke a crowd, even back before we started using the term woke. I mean, when you would walk into a publishing conference, it was like walking into a, what do you call it, Star Wars bar. You know the scene from Star Wars where it was full of creatures? My God, okay? I couldn't tell a man from a woman in those events, okay? I really couldn't, and some of them were downright scary. So, and this was happening 10, 15 years ago. So imagine what it is now. These poor authors over here, in the old days, you would send your manuscripts to literary agents, okay? And in hopes that the literary agent would be interested enough in pitching the book to the major publishers, okay? The literary agents, I'll tell you what, that's a different breed. You know, one of the things that Defiance specializes in, and this is why, don't do it for me, do it for these authors, but support these authors. Because in a lot of cases, and they have great manuscripts, great books, but in a lot of cases, they're not going to get published because of who they are, or what they believe, or what the story is in their book, or it could be anything. But look at the Senator Hawley, who had his book pulled back, okay, by Simon & Schuster. You see it everywhere, everywhere. So we started Defiance because I went to a University of Missouri publishing conference. My book, my original book, Patriots of Treason, was their #1 political thriller for the year. My debut book for this publisher. We went to, I was invited, because I was the #1 book in that category, I was invited to go to this international publishing event. It was at the University of Missouri. The University of Missouri is one of the top journalism schools in the country. Of course, I don't know if I'd send any kid to a university now, because you're likely to get back a communist in return. But, yeah, go ahead. You know, even A&M was all killed, okay? Just so you guys think that A&M's, you know, A&M's got, go look at their roster, how many Berkeley professors are in A&M, okay? Or, you want me to get up on a sidetrack and tell you about my youngest son who went to A&M, his senior year, MLK breakfast, they brought in the speaker and paid him $75,000, Danny Glover, who's the actor, but he's a rabid anti-Second Amendment nutcase, okay? You want to talk about radicals, here you go, okay? So even A&M is not immune, okay? So anyway, I digress. So I go to the University of Missouri. I wasn't originally told the publisher I was not going to go. And then I changed my mind, but I didn't tell them. Because I kind of had a sneaking suspicion. And I went there, they had their big booth, along with all the other publishers, and guess what? My book's not even displayed, it's not even there, it's not even mentioned, it's nowhere. Even though it was their #1 book, #1 political thriller, fiction thriller that year, nothing. And when I ran into the publisher, you should have seen her. She was, when she saw me, she went, uh-oh. I said, yeah. I said, where is it? She goes, David, you know, we're here at the zoo. I can't put your book out. If I put your book out, I'm going to get ridiculed by every publisher here. And I said, okay, I get it. Okay. I kept the rights to my book, and that was the impetus. I said, you know, everywhere I go, I meet authors who hate their publishers. It's a very common thing. And I'm like, why is it everywhere I go, people hate their publishers? It's because the publishers treat them like, you know what, they treat them terribly. They don't pay them on time, they screw around with them. And I said, well, there's a market for this. There's a market for conservative book conservative libertarian books. There's a market for a publisher that will take care of their authors. And so that's how Defiance was born. And we now have literally hundreds of books, dozens of authors. Some authors have done really well. We've had 9 #1 bestsellers in the last 12 months. Daniel is correct. His book went #1 6 times. He didn't tell you why, but I'll tell you why. First of all, it was a great book. It was #1 anyway. But the reason why it hit 6 different times is because Amazon would jack with it. You know, I'll never forget, Daniel called me up and said, "Hey, have you looked at Amazon and seen the book?" And I said, "No." He says, "Go look at it." I looked at it, and his book was for sale for $333. And it took us 3 weeks for Amazon to fix that issue. Okay? 3 weeks. So obviously he's not going to sell many books for $333. It fell off. Then we got the price fixed right and went back to #1. That kind of crap happened 6 times. Okay? It's not an accident. And you know, Amazon is no different than Google, which is no different than Facebook, which is no different than before Mouse with Twitter. You can't get a live person, and we sell a lot of books through Amazon. I mean, unfortunately, that's the 800-pound gorilla in our industry. We sell a lot of books. But even us, it's difficult to get to live people. And whenever there is a mistake like this, they blame it on algorithms. Okay? And it's not algorithms. So, anyway, so I would just, not for my sake, but support our authors. They put it out all on the line. They're going to be here to sign books tonight. You know, a couple things that I'll mention, because my time's almost up. You know, that when you hear the news, you can hear it on Fox, you can hear it on Newsmax, but when somebody says that the Bill of Rights or the amendment, none of the amendments are absolute, they're absolutely wrong. The Second Amendment is absolute. The First Amendment is absolute. Don't ever accept that. It literally means what it says. It is absolute. Which reminds me of another reporter who's not here tonight from the Texas Tribune. And this guy, he describes himself, or the Texas Tribune describes him as the democracy reporter. Really? Well, here's another cafe latte, skinny jean, metrosexual piece of shit. Okay? Who wrote 3 articles on this function, and never once reached out to us, never once got a quote, never once got a comment, nothing. And so now, and I hope you realize this, you can't believe what you read from any media, hardly. You can't believe what you hear, and people better be looking with their own eyes to figure out what's going on, because if that's your news information source, or social media is your news information source, we're in trouble. And now I'll kind of end with this. You know, Daniel mentioned, you know, how will future generations look at us? And what did we do? I mean, this is the beginning when people say that men can become pregnant, men can have menstrual periods. God, thank God I never had one. But the truth of the matter is, for most Americans, and y'all took out a Thursday night, weeknight. I know probably you have kids, school, got to go to work tomorrow, and yet you're here. You're here. So it's not a huge majority of people that will change the direction of this country. It's a well-organized minority that changes the direction of this country. Only was it 2 or 3% of the American colonists who actually participated in the American Revolution, including one of my ancestors. You know, when Daniel talks about looking at future generations, I sit there and I look at it, and I hear it, and I see it all the time in the workplace. You know, and I'll say this: most men, most American men, okay, will leave bills unpaid and will not look for their family's financial future. But yet, they'll buy a $150 NFL jersey with another man's name on it, put it on their back, and waste 4 hours every Sunday when they can't pay the bills of their own family. I'm sorry if that hurts. but it's the truth. Most people are looking for their next 3-day vacation. You know, most people are looking for a job. You know, there's more to it than this, folks. And we better wake up. And I'm hoping and praying that our authors, the messages that our authors bring out in their stories, whether it's fiction, whether it's nonfiction, whether it's a type of message that's getting out there. We're doing everything that we can to get these messages out. Some of them are just, they may not have a message, but they're entertaining as hell. Okay, and they deserve your support, and we're asking for it. These poor guys, if you buy a book from them, please, you don't know how important it is. If you like the book, post a review. If you didn't like it, don't post a review. But if you got one of their books, please post a review. That counts in Amazon's algorithms about where they rank those books. It's not just sales, it's also the reviews. So take the time. And I'm saying this as an author because I know how it feels. But, if you like the book, help them out. Give them a review. Okay? Share the book with somebody. Okay? Tell people about it. And listen, I can't thank y'all enough. I can't thank enough for the people that helped put this together tonight. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming. And we're going to soldier on. God bless you. By the way, while we're waiting to get this set up,
mic check.
the moment you've been waiting for. So I will tell you, the folks that you saw come across this stage to speak tonight are some of the finest people in the world. Bob Bernhoff is a dear friend and probably the smartest guy I know. Okay, and he's a patriot. They're all patriots. Justin, what can you say about Justin? There's no way we would know what he went through and what he did for us. Thank you, Justin. God bless you. Look at the risk that Cassandra took under cover. I mean, it's just, and a new hero, Paul. Well, we're going to get to know each other because there's probably some lawsuits in our future. So let me bring up, we're going to do this with Kyle. I can't wait for you guys to hear Kyle. First, let me bring up Cassandra. Cassandra, come on up. So I work with Cassandra every day, and it's a harrowing experience. The best thing I can say about Cassandra is she suffers no fools. I'll promise you that. All right, so now, guest honor. So before we bring him up, I just want to tell you a couple things. I got to know Kyle. I was fortunate enough, Kyle and his girlfriend came out to my ranch and hunted some hogs, and we had some fun, smoked some cigars, and really got to know Kyle. And this kid is very genuine. It's interesting to see how the media has portrayed him because it's completely false. And you're going to see it for yourself. Kyle has a huge heart. And Kyle is a very articulate young man for 20 years old. Now, can you imagine going through what he has gone through at 20 years old? The poor man, because he is a man, you can't even imagine what his life's like. He can't go to a college party. Maybe he'll tell you that story. He tries to enroll in a university, and they blackball him. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The stories that you heard, probably I'm going to let him talk because he needs to tell it more than I do. But I will tell you this: some of the things that, even though Kyle was acquitted, it's one of the most grievous injustices the way this went down. And you're not going to have time to probably hear the whole thing tonight. But I will tell you this: we have a very corrupt government, folks. Like you didn't know that already. But look, help me welcome up our special guest and give him a warm Conroe, Texas welcome for Kyle Rittenhouse.
All right, folks, I know that we all want to hear from Kyle, and so we are going to be doing this interview style because this is the rally against censorship. And so when I thought about what I wanted to ask Kyle, I really wanted to focus on censorship and how it's affected his life. So did you want to say anything to start with?
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you, David, for introducing me. We're going to start talking about censorship.
Absolutely. So, obviously, Kyle, censorship, both tech, media, government, played a really big role in the lies that have been told about you. And there's still being spread about you. Would you say that censorship, explain how censorship has kind of played a role?
Absolutely. So censorship has played a major role in my case, my life. Being censored, from my supporters being taken off of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, their voices not being heard, people only allowed to spread hate about me on that social media. That's how censorship has played a huge role.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Facebook routinely allows people to post links to, other people's legal defense funds, including members of Antifa. Can you tell me a little bit more about kind of your experience with the people who supported you that actively had an effect on your case?
Absolutely. So Give Send Go supported me majorly. They helped me raise a lot of money during my trial to help pay for that. GoFundMe did not allow that. GoFundMe took down a donation page made for me in the beginning. People were not allowed to donate to that platform. Facebook removed any messages for support, but Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg actually went out and called me a mass murderer in a video. He defamed me in that. They didn't allow people to say I did nothing wrong. TikTok didn't allow things for support. Instagram, Twitter, people were removed off of these platforms for supporting me.
So you just talked about the messages. So are you saying that even in private messages that people were not allowed to express support for you?
Absolutely. I was blacklisted on these social media platforms. Nobody was allowed to support me.
And we're talking about Mark Zuckerberg, who obviously I have a little bit of experience. I've never met him directly. But tell me what it was like watching one of the world's richest, most powerful men call you a mass murderer when at the time, I believe you hadn't even been to trial yet.
Absolutely. I don't know if he saw the videos or not, but that was not mass murder. That was self-defense. And he attacked me.
Let me be the first to say that I speak for myself and I can speak for Defiance Press, and I think I speak for everyone except for maybe a few hostile media in this room, that we are very glad that you're still here with us today. So, tell me about what kind of information was sort of kept from the public that you felt like they should have known about your case. And did you ever worry that the fact that accurate information wasn't getting out, and in fact, blatantly false information was being reported? Were you ever worried about how that would have impacted your criminal trial?
A little bit, but I knew God was on my side because he was watching me.
So, tell me though, your faith brought you through this, but surely there must have been some points where you were worried, even as a person of faith, where there are outside forces, of course, great things happen to wonderful people, good people of faith. So tell me more about that.
Absolutely. When I saw the media attacks and the media saying that I shot black people or saying I went down there across state lines to open fire at a BLM protest and I see all these false narratives, I was like, wow, what if people actually believe this? If the media won't look at the facts, what if the general public won't look at the facts? These are the people that the public is getting their information from. They're lying to people, and they're doing it with easily accessible video.
And of course, during that time, obviously you weren't active on social media. How frustrating was it for you? I can only imagine. Tell me what that was like, that you felt like you didn't even have a voice during that time.
It was scary. I'm glad I had some people out there defending me and speaking the truth, such as my great attorneys, Mark Richards, Bruce Robson, and Natalie Wisco. But just seeing that the media is trying to get away with everything they're saying, and that some people are believing them. Some people believe what they're telling them, and they buy into it. I got told a story the other day from a friend of mine who knows Kevin Hart, and he was asking Kevin Hart about what he thought, and Kevin Hart was like, oh, isn't he the guy that shot the black people? And he had to educate him on what happened.
Wait, so are you talking about the actor Kevin Hart?
Yes. I heard this story like 2 days ago, and I thought it would be a good one to tell. Like, he had no idea what happened, and thought I shot black people.
That's so wild to me. So how long, just refresh my memory, how long has it been since you were acquitted?
I was acquitted on November 19th of 2021.
And over a year later, a major Hollywood actor, so somebody who's...
There's several Hollywood actors that think I shot black people, that continue to defame me. Some are willing to listen to the facts and sit down and figure things out and watch the video, but some don't care. They continue to lie to their audience of 1 million plus followers.
That has to be just incredibly frustrating. So now, was it only the media, or I know we talked a little bit about how Facebook was involved, but talk a little bit more about how not only the mainstream media has perpetuated these continual lies, just flat out falsehoods, not even things that could be misinterpreted, black and white facts. Tell me how the tech companies really kind of affected that as well.
Well, somebody hacked into Gibson Go and they doxed their donor list. I don't know if you remember that, where police officers a police officer got fired from his job. Because somebody doxed Gibson Go and didn't agree with the message he posted. And that's what the media could do. They showed up at his house, and I think his name was Lieutenant William Kelly. They knocked on his door, and he got fired from the police department in, I think it was in Norfolk, Virginia. So that's another example of how the media is ruining other people's lives, doxing people, not telling the truth because they don't want to see me get a fair trial.
And so, just to kind of be sure that we're telling the full story, did this police lieutenant say anything that, would warrant that kind of backlash?
I don't recall exactly what it says, but it doesn't matter. He donated anonymously. He has the First Amendment right to say whatever he wants.
So they went, the media... So this police lieutenant exercised his right to donate anonymously to your campaign. And for that, just to be clear, people who were against you doxed Go, put this information out to the public, and attempted to ruin this man's life.
Absolutely. And then there's pictures of this police chief marching with Black Lives Matter, holding the BLM signs up, while that police officer was fired for supporting me.
That's wild, because I absolutely think that, the police chief, if he wants to make a political statement, he should be able to. But I think one of the issues of why we're here talking is that everybody deserves First Amendment rights. And so that goes into kind of how the media and the tech companies are doing it. But this has even bigger ramifications, because at the end of the day, the First Amendment is a mandate to the government, right? Like Southern Star Brewery, they canceled us. This is kind of, part of my language, was a shitty move. But they have a right to do it as a business. But can you tell us, how did the state, or like the FBI, or any of the law enforcement organizations, or the people prosecuting you, did they ever withhold any information that would have helped you in a court of law?
Yes, so there was a drone video during my trial that the state had, and we didn't get it until about halfway through my trial. I know some of you guys probably remember that whole fiasco. There was also FBI surveillance video flying from a plane, and the state gave us a decompressed version of it, which the state used a software called Handbrake to compress that file and then send it over to us. And that was part of something that I don't think was fair. I don't think that they had the enhanced version, they had the good version of it. We did not.
Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that? Because just in case people, I know that I watched the trial, I do remember a little bit of that, but let's just refresh everybody's memory on how the state, who absolutely, more than any media organization, tech company, has an obligation to uphold the First Amendment, and how that affected not only you in the court of law, but essentially in the court of public opinion as well.
So the state came up with their own narrative. I can't get too much into details with it because I am being sued. So I can't get too much into that, but they came up with this whole false narrative that isn't true, and they were using this drone video to say that this is what happened when we know that's not what happened, and we proved that's not what happened. And they tried to change the public narrative saying, I chased somebody down. I don't know if you remember that, when I'm on video being chased down, but they tried to use the drone video to do that and tried to sway the jury when that's just not true.
How did that that has to shape your opinion on government? How would you say that kind of affected just your overall worldview? Because I know when I was your age, I briefly told the story of why I ended up joining the military. I had a very kind of rosy-eyed view of the world when I was your age. Tell me how, when you experience something like that, how it affects you.
I was ticked off because this is our government. They're supposed to uphold the Constitution. They're supposed to tell the truth. And I, as a citizen, I deserve the right to a fair trial. And I don't think I was given a fair trial in that instance when the state was lying and they weren't presenting all the facts as they were. It wasn't my fault that they had bad facts. They were the ones that chose to charge me.
Absolutely. And do you think that because, maybe they didn't have a case that was strong enough for a court of law, that they tried to then take this to the court of public opinion?
I think so. I think they tried to use a lot of things to sway the public opinion. Sorry, I'm getting told my microphone is close to my face. So, what was I saying? Sorry. Yes, I absolutely do think that they tried to sway the public opinion. I think that them putting stuff out there, them lying and filing motions, were trying to maybe influence a potential juror member into convicting me.
And last I checked, I know we have a lot of lawyers in the room. I don't think the court of public opinion is valid in a criminal case. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. So you kind of mentioned that you were being sued. So what battles are you still fighting lately?
I'm being sued in the Eastern District of Wisconsin by the family of Anthony Huber.
So you're still fighting this. Do you think that the media has, after the acquittal, do you think that they are still trying to put out inaccurate information about you?
I know they're still putting out inaccurate information, like Houston Chronicle. I know they are. They put out a bunch of inaccurate information. Same with Washington Post. I think they're somewhere in here.
We've got a lot of our good friends in the media out here tonight.
I know, like, the lawsuit isn't getting reported on very much. People aren't reporting on it. I think it's another attack because they know I have a lot of supporters who help me fight this, but they're not pushing any of my fundraising in the media. They're not talking about it. They just wanted to be silent about it.
Well, because also, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like they've kind of let people run with this, now that we've had a chance to talk and I've gotten to know you a little bit, assumption that you're this like rich dude now.
I am not this rich dude.
So, now after being acquitted, and we're over a year out from this, surely you must have thought that that was the end of your battle. Or did you anticipate this being a continual battle that would be going to the point where people are raging and venues are canceling over you just being at a essentially private speaking engagement?
No, not really. Like, I knew there was going to be a little bit of a battle, but I didn't know it was going to be to the point to where if I post something on my Twitter, the entire left is going to blow up and try to cancel a speaking engagement event for me and for Defiance Press, and heads were exploding because I posted it. They were like, no, this can't happen, cancel this, and Southern Star Brewery saying they're not going to host us, which was ridiculous. It's their right to do so, but I don't agree with it because they said they were apolitical, but they hosted other things that were pretty political in my opinion.
Yeah, our friends at TEXIT, I remember the CEO said it was TEXIT they had a problem with, but I believe we found some pictures of Southern Star Brewery hosting a TEXIT event, which is an odd statement for them to make.
Yeah, I think that's all
So, do you think that even now that you've been acquitted, and with everything else, and you have a lot of eyes on you still around the world, do you still feel like you are still having trouble getting the truth out?
Yes, I think so. I believe my social media is still a little bit censored, especially on Instagram. I can't seem to really grow that many followers there, but on Twitter, after my shadow ban was lifted, I'm doing pretty good. On Twitter, Instagram, I get no traction. I can't really promote anything. I can't promote anything on Twitter. I go to boost the post. It doesn't let me boost it on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So I do think I'm still being censored in that way.
Elon, fix it. We know you pay attention. But that's crazy. So you feel that these platforms are still hindering you from being able to raise money for your legal defense even now, because your entire adult life has basically been spent fighting court battles.
Yeah. Ever since I was 17. I got acquitted and it was a short breath of relief, and then I was served with a lawsuit.
Tell me, how did that feel when you were served? After did you anticipate the lawsuit, or were you kind of like, oh, here we go again?
I'm not going to talk much about that because I actually wasn't physically served. So
okay.
I'm not going to talk because we're fighting that battle right now. But I wasn't physically served.
But were you surprised that you're still having to fight legal battles later?
To be sued again? Yeah. But no. I was just like, when I found out that I am being sued again, I was like, again? This is ridiculous.
Just as a young person who's starting to get their life off the ground, how does it feel that despite everything you've been through, despite being found innocent, despite everything that's come out, that people seem to pay attention to you in a way that honestly, even though I've been in this media landscape for a while, I have truly never seen before. How does that make you feel? Like, talk about some of the crazy things that have caused you to trend on Twitter, for instance.
So I was at SHOT Show just recently. National Association for Gun Rights had me out at their booth, and I was trending that entire week. I was like, how is this even possible? And I have no idea why half the time I was trending, but some of it was because of Southern Star Brewery, the other was because of another venue that canceled me. So Southern Star isn't the first venue that canceled me. The Venetian, the Hope Room there, they weren't going to host me for an event there. They ended up not doing that event there. It's unfortunate, but it's what happened. I have a feeling this isn't going to be the first time.
So, I mean, there's a lot of controversial people, some of which are in this room, but there's so many people who are figures out there in the world. Why do you think people are so fixated on you in particular?
I don't know, because I don't think my life is that interesting, to be honest. I was sitting back there and I was playing Minecraft before we came up here. I'm just like, I'm 20 years old and I don't know why the media is so focused on me, but it is what it is.
Funny because we were backstage and yeah, we noticed people trying to take pictures, but we were looking at pictures of puppies and he was playing Minecraft. Not exactly stuff that should be trending on Twitter. But so how has the experience with the trial and censorship shaped or changed your worldview? Has it made you more conservative? Has it
extremely?
Absolutely. No one should be okay with the fact that blatantly false, the media wants to talk about misinformation and disinformation, and yet they are the greatest purveyors of it. If you could talk to your 16-year-old self now, after everything you've been through, after all of this craziness, talk to 16-year-old Kyle, what would you say?
That takes a second to think about. Well, 16-year-old me was just living a normal life, and I thought I was doing the right things, being a police or a firefighter, but what I would tell myself is everything can change. Nothing is permanent. Everything can change, and not get too comfortable because the world may go ahead and try to screw you in some ways or the other, but then be okay with that.
Absolutely. About your story to the crowd that we have here is that what happened to you could happen to so many people in this room.
Absolutely, it could have happened to anybody could be attacked by the media and fame. Just for simply doing the right thing, standing up for causes you believe in, protesting Planned Parenthood, going out and going to a free censorship rally. You can be attacked for that. For doing basic everyday things that you're entitled to do. It's in our Constitution that we should be able to do these things. We have a right to as Americans.
Absolutely. We have a right to our freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the freedom to assemble, which, people don't want to see that. People don't want to see these conversations because I'm of the belief that if people heard more about your story and got to hear it from you, got to hear more about it, that perhaps some opinions would change. What do you think?
I think so. I've talked to some people, so I'm going to tell a quick story. So I was at a photo shoot with my girlfriend, and she does modeling, and her makeup artist happened to be a liberal. And she was like, oh, hell nah, I don't want to do this. And then me and her got to talking, and I was telling her my story. I was telling her what happened. It's so amazing to see how quickly somebody's mind can change. And at the end of that, she was giving me a hug and saying, I'm so sorry for everything that you've gone through. I'm so sorry for the media, what you've done to you. They completely lied to me, and I feel like I was taken advantage of. She was like, the media used me to believe that you were this bad person when you were just an innocent, at the time, 19-year-old kid who did nothing wrong.
And that has to be absolutely dehumanizing to have these huge media outlets with budgets outside of anything neither you or I are rich people. budgets outside of anything either one of us can comprehend, to use that to attack a, at the time, teenager, now 20-year-old.
Absolutely. They continue to attack me, and this is true. It's really, really disturbing because they didn't just hurt my right to a fair representation, a fair trial. They put my safety at risk. They put my life at risk. There are people that want to kill me because of what the media has said.
Can you talk a little bit more about some of the things that you are having to deal with as far as that goes because of the media and the narrative that they have tried to push?
I have to have security in most places I go. A lot of people want to hurt me. At America Fest, I was walking to the venue, I was walking to the convention center, and some car sped right past me, screaming murderer, and I was just like, I'm by myself, this is scary. What if somebody else do something? Because security is expensive, and I can't afford it 24/7 if we're being realistic. Like, it's just disturbing to see that some people believe it and that people want to hurt me, people want to hurt my loved ones, and people close to me all the time.
So there's a lot of us who have had to deal with censorship in one form or another, and a lot of us who have even had to deal with the media saying untrue, hurtful, false, damaging things about us. What words would you have for those of us in this room today who are going through those struggles, or even somebody who's the next Kyle Rittenhouse, who might be going through the same struggles, who might be under the same scrutiny and microscope that you've experienced?
I would say support independent journalists. We need to take over the box media. We need to stop supporting CNN, MSNBC. We need to show our view counts to other people like The Blaze or other conservative media platforms that aren't going to censor our voices, that are pro-speech, that will push any narrative, that will talk about anything. They won't have a one-sided opinion. They won't have a bias. We need to start focusing on people that are, I'm going to say, conservative media.
And I agree. I think independent media is absolutely the way to go. I think more speech is better than less speech. I think more speech is the answer to bad speech, or things that we don't like, ideas that we don't agree with. And so I really want to thank you, Kyle. Thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking with us this evening. Thank you all.
Tell us about your nonprofit you're supporting, the Canines for Cops.
Yes, Canines for Cops, ran by a good friend of mine, Christy Shaw.
What do they do?
They help support law enforcement by putting dogs in police departments, find drugs, stuff like that, and also dogs in schools.
Awesome. So Kyle has agreed, and we continue this past tonight. And we're also going to do some of Mr. Justice.
So, folks, there we have it.
Mr.
Kyle Rittenhouse. We've got the full Monty Patriots here. Got these young ladies. Oh yeah. Here we have Miss Cassandra munching on pizza, and she's clearing all of the beverages.
Somebody has to eat some pizza. It's not in 8 itself.
Thank you. Montgomery County Tea Party. Give them a buzz, give them a call.
Well, y'all, we really appreciate you tuning in with us. They're just going to have a little bit more chat and back and forth. It's kind of hard to hear anyway. Walter's phone is fixing to die, and y'all were getting seasick. So we truly appreciate you guys tuning in with us like you do all the time. We love you. We thank you so much for your support. Please go to TexasFullyLoaded.com. Click on hashtag We the People Work so that you can continue to support our program and what we're doing. If you don't mind, also please make sure that you're following us on all of the social media platforms, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever makes your heart happy. Go to TexasFullyLoaded.com. Continue to support us. We love you. We thank you. Thank you to TEXIT.TV for being our host network Monday through Friday from 10 to 12 Texas time. We'll see you tomorrow, y'all. Bye.